Hello and welcome to the World News on VOP TV. I am Kayla Abraham. Ceasefire talks have been suspended and U.S. sanctions have been imposed on military suppliers to both sides in Sudan's worsening conflict as the fighting escalated to a new peak with scores of civilian casualties in a Khartoum market. According to citizen volunteer groups in the district, at least 19 people were killed and 106 injured when shells hit the market in an impoverished neighborhood of southern Khartoum. Some reports said that the death toll had climbed to 27 as volunteers made an emergency appeal for blood supplies and medical staff. It was the latest in a growing wave of violence that has shattered a new attempted ceasefire and triggered a decision by mediators to suspend the talks between the Sudanese military and the powerful Rapid Support Forces militia. In a joint statement, the United States and Saudi Arabia said they were temporarily halting the ceasefire talks in the Saudi city of Jeddah because of repeated serious violations of the latest ceasefire. They said the violations have impeded the humanitarian aid and the restoration of essential services that the ceasefire was intended to allow. They said the violations have included occupation of civilian homes, private businesses, public buildings and hospitals, as well as air and artillery strikes, attacks, and prohibited movement. The joint statement said humanitarian groups have reported that 112 warehouses and offices have been looted and 115 vehicles have been stolen since the beginning of the conflict on April 15. Two United Nations agencies reported further looting on Thursday. The World Food Programme said its food and other assets had been plundered in El Obeid, capital of North Kordofan state, jeopardizing the aid supplies for 4.4 million people. A WF executive director, Cindy McCain, said it is unconscionable to steal from the hungry. The UN High Commissioner for Refugees, Filippo Grandi, said two of his agency's offices in Khartoum were looted and the warehouse in El Obeid was attacked. In a joint statement, the United States and Saudi Arabia said they were temporarily halting the ceasefire talks in the Saudi city of Jeddah because of repeated situations. Let us now quickly bring in a global affairs analyst, Mr. Kunle Falawar, to get some more views on this story. It is nice having you here, Mr. Kunle.
Hi, thanks for.
All right. Let me start from here. What is your reaction to this?
Yes, so it's very unfortunate what we're seeing in Sudan. It's heartbreaking. Um, we've been seeing a lot of instability in different parts of the world. Now, adding Sudan to the equation is really, really terrible. If we look at the situation of the country before now, um, Sudan is one of the poorest countries in the world. They're struggling. They have been struggling with farming. They had so many crises prior before that, political crisis, and now that there is an internal wrangling between the ruling class. Um, it's just very sad, and they're fighting for the common people of Sudan. How can that be when there are thousands of people that are being internally displaced and are currently and constantly leaving the country? People are dying. There's looting all over the place. It's just uncalled for. It's sometimes just feel like these generals and these warlords, they seem not to have a heart, they seem not to have a conscience, putting in the space of international crisis, like I said earlier. There's the Ukraine and Russia war on the side, and this seems to have international condemnation, which is very commendable, but to say the most, this is not great for the entire African continent.
All right, but I want to know why couldn't they arrive at an agreement with this peace talks?
So there are a lot of vested interest in the peace talk and the negotiation. The RSF, as part of the demands, was to have them incorporate those militia groups as the Sudanese army, and that is really not going well for the generals. I would say. Don't also forget that these two generals that are in conflict with each other, they were part and parcel of the, officials that uh, uh, chased out the incumbent, the former president, out of office, uh, a coup, which was successful because he's out of office now. And then they they started to have internal rendering among each other. So there seems to be a lot of arm twisting and fight for dominance among. This is a political leadership crisis. It has nothing to do with the Sudanese people. It's the way it's going. It's very, very, likely to be seen as more of a fight, the control of the resources of Sudan. And there are so many companies and um, entities that are backing each and every one of those military officials that are fighting for that dominance, and until we have international actors come in and kind of mediate and let them know that what they're doing is condemnable, what they're doing isn't right. It's not like they don't know that it's not right, but the international community needs to step in and let them know that this is really wrong, and have them come back to the negotiating table and continue dialogue.
Okay, now humanitarian aid have been condoned of by the fighting parties. I mean, it's been increasing starvation, health crisis, and population deterioration. Has the power drunkenness gotten to the level that they do not longer care for their people?
It's so unfortunate, like I said. Thousands of Sudanese people are moving to South Sudan. They're moving to Chad. They're going to Egypt. Now, South Sudan, Chad, and other neighboring countries are already grappling with a lot of people coming in as folks that have lost their homes, they've lost their source of, they've lost, some of them lost their families. Um, so it's a lot, and coming from Chad, especially where it's also a very poor country. There's a lot of internally displaced people already in Chad, and then adding to the thousands, which is continually moving away from Sudan to other places to seek refuge. So this is becoming very fortunate, and it's just an people fleeing the country, fleeing zones, and there's spread lynching all over. It's just uh, you see in a potential war zone. Nobody is safe anymore, and it's just a sad and a sorry situation. And then, unless and until the warring functions are able together and kind of figure out what they want to do for the country, because again, this is not a fight for the people of Sudan. Because why would you be fighting for the people that you're killing? It is very, very sad and unfortunate. So it's fight for dominance, it's fight for the scarce resources. There's a lot of gold in Sudan. There's a lot of resources that those generals with all their weaponry and their international support from some certain quarters, if they're seeing, they're looking at just continuing to loot the country, which is already in a very bad state.
Okay, now one would say that this is peculiar to West African nations, like the likes of Cameroon, Niger, Chad. Why do we have such totalitarian menace in government administration?
So let me go back and have um, and kind of take out the military out of governance. We will continue to see issues like this. Sudan was transition to democratic um, governance of dispensation, and that was the whole crux of the matter, to help the actualize this dream or democratically. And unfortunately, the general kind of power or intend to hang on to power and under the guise of protecting the people and safeguarding their lives. So until we go back to having democratic governance, which will hold elected officials accountable for their deeds and misdeeds, military officials they just go through orders. They don't want to be corrected or told what to do. So that type of governance is not being proven to be effective. Uh, a lot of people, particularly talking about Sudan, like I said before, it's a very poor country with really nothing to show for it. But then again, there is a natural resource we used to better the life of the people and and that's why you're seeing the fighting that is going on over there. But at least if we could transition to a democratic governance, that way will stability in the political sector in Sudan.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Kunle. It was nice having you here.
My pleasure.
And 9 persons have been killed in Senegal during clashes between riot police and supporters of opposition leader Ousmane Sonko after a court sentenced him to 2 years in jail, casting serious doubts on his chances of running for president next year. The 48-year-old Sonko did not attend the hearing over an alleged sexual assault. The Justice Ministry said the opposition leader could be taken to prison at any time. Police remained stationed around his home in Dakar as unrest fled in the capital and elsewhere after the verdict. Sonko was accused of raping a woman who worked in a massage parlor in 2021 when she was 20 and making death threats against her. He denied wrongdoing and said the charges are politically motivated. A criminal court cleared Sonko of rape but found him guilty of a separate offense described in the penal code as immoral behavior towards individuals younger than 21. One of his lawyers, Bamba Sis, citing Senegal's electoral law, said with this sentence, Sonko cannot be a candidate. Sonko's Pastef party said the verdict was part of a political plot and called on citizens to stop all activity and take to the streets. Interior Minister Antoine Felix said on the state television in the early hours on Friday, 9 people were killed in the protests that broke out in parts of Dakar and other cities after the verdict. Earlier, thick black smoke had billowed from a central university campus in Dakar, where protesters set several buses alight in the afternoon and threw rocks at riot police, who responded by firing tear gas. Government spokesperson Abdul Karim Fofana said security forces had the situation under control in the capital. The NetBlocks Internet Observatory said several social media and messaging platforms were restricted in Senegal late on Thursday, a move likely to significantly impact the public's ability to communicate. University law professor Ndiak Fall said Sonko could demand a retrial if he returns himself into the authorities. The case has triggered sporadic violent protests in the West African country since 2021. Sonko's supporters denounced the charges as a ploy to prevent him from running in elections scheduled for February. The government and the justice system denied this. The United States and South Korea has issued a joint cybersecurity advisory on Friday about a North Korean hacker group that so claims stole technology used in the North failed satellite launch attempt this week. The Foreign Ministry announced on Friday that South Korea also slapped unilateral sanctions on the hacker organization known as Kimsuki. According to the ministry, Kimsuki targets experts in the foreign policy, security, and defense fields for intelligence gathering. The statement said the hacker organization had been directly or indirectly involved in the development of North Korea's so-called satellites by stealing advanced technologies related to weapons development and satellites in space from all over the world. North Korea attempted to launch what it claimed was its Paleogyon-1 military reconnaissance satellite on Wednesday, but the rocket splashed into the Yellow Sea when it lost thrust after its first stage separated. The White House condemned the launch, saying it involved technologies that are directly related to the DPRK Intercontinental Ballistic Missile Program. The Democratic People's Republic of Korea is the official name of North Korea. The chiefs of the United Nations and NATO Secretary General also slammed the spy satellite's launch, saying it was a violation of UN Security Council resolutions. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has arrived at the European Political Community Summit in Moldova on Thursday morning, where he discussed developments in the ongoing conflict in his country with the leaders of 46 other countries, including Russia. Zelensky was received by the host of the meeting, Moldovan President Maia Sandu, at Mimi Castle in Bolboca, near Chisinau. The Ukrainian president thanked her for the humanitarian support offered to Kiev and for receiving Ukrainian refugees. Sandu had previously said that the large-scale meeting near the Ukrainian border was a testament to the growing unity of the continent, confirming the participants' commitment to peace, their condemnation of Russia's war in Ukraine, and their solidarity with Kiev. Zelensky also reaffirmed Ukraine's ambition to become a full member of both the European Union and in NATO. The creation of the European political community was initiated by French President Emmanuel Macron to allow for informal and flexible discussions of topical political issues in broader context than the European Union, and to allow for closer cooperation between EU member states and countries outside the bloc. The first summit was held in Prague in October of last year. The main themes of this year's meeting included peace and security, energy and climate protection, and improving the interconnection of infrastructure networks between European countries. It also brought together senior representatives of EU member states and the EU central institutions, as well as head of state or government from 20 European countries. NATO announced before the summit that it would increase its monitoring of Moldovan airspace, adding that the expansion of the AWACS air surveillance system shows the importance Moldova plays as an ally for the defense alliance. EU High Representative for Foreign Affairs and Security Policies said upon his arrival that one of the objectives of the meeting was to show unity and respect for international law, adding that Russia had excluded itself from this community by attacking Ukraine. He revealed that the summit would also discuss stability on the continent as a whole, especially in view of the worrying development in the Balkans. The EU's top diplomats stressed that the solution to the situation in Kosovo is certainly not violence, and confirmed that he will reiterate this position to the presidents of both Kosovo and Serbia at the meeting. Speaking ahead of the summit, however, Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić and Kosovo President Vjosa Osmani blamed each other for the tensions. Osmani said Serbia was supporting illegal structures in Kosovo, while Vučić said the solution was for Kosovo to recall disputed local leaders from Serb inhabited areas. Austrian Chancellor Karl Nehammer also said it was important to stop the violence that has broken out in Kosovo. At the same time, he stressed that while supporting the European integration of Moldova and other Eastern European countries, they should not forget to help the Western Balkan countries in their EU accession efforts. The governor of Russia's Belgorod region has said on Friday that 2 people had been killed and 2 others injured when Ukrainian forces shelled a road in the town of Maslova Pristana near the Ukrainian border. Governor Vyacheslav Gladkov said fragments of the shells hit passing cars. 2 women were traveling in one of them. They died from their injuries on the spot. Local officials said in a post on Telegram that several other regions in western Russia were hit by shelling and drones on Friday in overnight attacks from Ukraine, but no one was injured. The governor of Russia's western Bryansk region said Ukrainian forces had shelled 2 villages close to the Ukrainian border, while the governor of neighboring Kursk region said some buildings had been damaged in an overnight drone attack. The local governor said long-range drones also hit two towns in the Smolensk region overnight, while the head of Russia's Kaluga region said a blast was reported in a forest. There were no reports of any injuries. Russian officials have in recent days reported intensified attacks from northern Ukraine. The Defense Ministry said its forces had repelled 3 cross-border attacks by what it said were Ukrainian terrorist formations into the Belgorod region on Thursday, the first such incursion. Ukraine denies its military is involved in the incursions and says they are conducted by Russian volunteer fighters. Ukrainian forces in Kiev said on Friday they shot down 36 Russian missiles and drones in and around the capital overnight, with 2 people injured by falling debris before authorities lifted air raid alert across most of the country. Russia has launched about 20 missile and drone attacks in Kiev since the beginning of May, a surge in strikes that the government says appears aimed at derailing Ukraine's preparation for a major counter-offensive. Meanwhile, a 9-year-old Ukrainian girl, her mother, and another woman were killed in a Russian missile strike on Kiev on Thursday after the air raid shelter they rushed to fill opened. President Volodymyr Zelensky expressed frustration at the miscue and said if local officials were unable to provide protection, they could be prosecuted. His comments appeared aimed at Kiev city authorities and Mayor Vitaly Klitschko, with whom he has periodically clashed during the war. Police opened a criminal investigation into the 3 deaths near a medical clinic in the Desnyansky district of Kiev after the 18th attack on the capital since the start of May. Klitschko said 3 people, one of them a child, died near the clinic last night. A rocket fragment fell near the entrance to the clinic 4 minutes after the air alert was announced, and people headed for the shelter. European Council President Charles Michel met with Azerbaijan's President Aliyev, Armenian Prime Minister Pashinyan, French President Emmanuel Macron, and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz on the margins of the European Political Community Summit on 1st June 1. The summit was held at Mimi Castle in Balboka, 35 kilometers from Chisinau. Charles Michel, after the meeting, said they had the opportunity to address all the topics that we discussed in Brussels in May: connectivity, security and rights, the border delimitation, the peace treaty, adding that his meeting was a good preparation for the next meeting that would take place in Brussels on 21 July. He also announced that he intends to invite President Aliyev, Prime Minister Pashinyan, Chancellor Scholz, and President Macron to meet again in the margins of the next meeting of the European Political Community that will take place in Spain. An EU-backed effort to avert a new conflict in the South Caucasus has been overshadowed by a growing diplomatic row, with Azerbaijan accusing French President Emmanuel Macron of misrepresenting what was discussed during the high-stakes peace talks with Armenia. Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev and Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan met on Thursday evening on the sidelines of the European Political Community Summit in Moldova for the latest in a series of negotiations on a potential peace treaty. Macron, along with European Council President Charles Michel and German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, joined the sit-down as mediators. In a statement following the summit, the Elysee Palace said that European leaders called on Armenia and Azerbaijan to respect all their commitments, urging the 2 neighboring nations to release prisoners of war and avoid hostile rhetoric. In addition, Macron's press services added the 3 Western leaders stressed the importance of defining rights and guarantees for the Armenians of Nagorno-Karabakh, the breakaway region over which Armenia and Azerbaijan fought a brutal war in 2020. However, on Friday, Azerbaijan's foreign ministry spokesperson said the statements made unilaterally by the French president about the meeting does not reflect and distorts the position of the parties. Unfortunately, this is not the first case of such behavior by France, and it does not make a positive contribution to the peace process. And that is a wrap on the world news on VOP TV. I am Kayla Abraham, and thanks for watching.